Hi guys, it's Aoife from Freddy's You Died Laughing, and I'm here to do my weekly wrap up. I have 3 books to talk about this week, 2 ebooks and 1 audiobook. And I'm going to talk about the audiobook first, which was Olive Kitteridge by Elizabeth Strout. This is a book that I was reading because I've read one Elizabeth Strout book before, which is I Am Lucy Barton, which I really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed her writing and her characterization in that. I liked how it was quite a ordinary story about an ordinary woman, and I really do love those stories where just ordinary people, nothing particularly crazy happens in their lives, but we are just following them and seeing just the different things that they do and the different people that they meet and the relationships they have, and it's just so lovely. And I really found Elizabeth Strout's writing in I Am Lucy Barton really nice, and I knew her big book was Olive Kitteridge, and I do actually have the next book that just came out recently, Olive Again, on NetGalley, and I realised that I really do need to read Olive Kitteridge before I read that, obviously, because it is actually a sequel. So I managed to get this one on audiobook, and I'm really glad I listened to it on audiobook, because I think the audiobook for this one really made this book for me. It was just such a lovely audiobook. So this is basically about a woman called Olive Kitteridge. She lives in, I think it's near Maine that she lives. She lives in this town, and she is married, she has a child, and she's one son. And we only get a few chapters in this book that are actually kind of from Olive's point of view. A lot of the chapters in this book, like the first chapter we are reading, is from her husband, her kind of like long suffering husband who loves her loads, but you know, he's the one that has to deal with her moods and her funny humours, and just, you know, just general things with being married to someone who might not be happy all the time, or who's someone who's very complex, and you know, really what it's like to be married to like just a normal human woman. And we are seeing Henry and how he deals with being in love with Olive, and his relationships with other people in his life, and we kind of follow that kind of theme throughout the story. Some of the stories we're getting, some of the chapters we are getting, are from people who just live in the same town as Olive, and we might not even see Olive for only maybe like 5 minutes in this or just for like a very brief moment in this person's chapter. They might either talk about her because she was a teacher, they might talk about her being their teacher, or they might see her in the shop or see her at something else, and they might talk to her for a few minutes, and then Olive goes away, and we end up just learning more about this person's life. So as well as Olive, we are learning about a lot of other people in the town, and just whatever way it's put together is just so charming and so lovely. And I'm not saying that every single person we're following is a really nice person, and all these people are very deeply complex, and they are very human, and they have human emotions, and they do wrong things, and you know, just like they're just living their life. And we have people who are like just dealing with depression. We have people who are dealing with you know, overbearing mothers. It's just so interesting to read, and I found that the audiobook was just such a pleasure, because the audiobook narrator, whose name is out of my head right now, again we'll leave her link down below, the audiobook narrator did such a fantastic job with this book, because every single, like, this is the type of story that like things like those little sentences that hold a lot of emotion bring so much to the story, and bring so much to each person's story that we are being told. And sometimes it's just those little things that either, you know, your voice goes up when you're saying that sentence, or your voice goes down, and the audiobook narrator did such a good job of this, those little inflections in her voice, to really bring so much emotion into the chapter, so much emotion into the sentence and what this person was telling us, and it just made the book for me. I would give this book like maybe a 4.5 in terms of just the book itself and the enjoyment it brought to me, but I would give the audiobook narration a 5 out of 5 stars every time, because I just thought the audiobook was just so good, and I would definitely recommend it. Again, it's just one of those nice slower audiobooks. Not a lot of action is happening in it, you're just learning about these people in this town, but it's just so lovely, and I definitely recommend this one. And I love unapologetic women in fiction, and Olive Kitteridge is an unapologetic woman. She is who she is, and she is, you know, she can be a bit of a busybody, she can be a bit overbearing, she can be a little bit gruff and nasty at times, but she's still so full of love for the people in her life. And sometimes she doesn't show that love enough, and sometimes she shows it in ways that other people might not know that that's what she's doing to them, that she's showing them her love. Yeah, I just love this. I loved Olive's character. I cannot wait to go back and read Olive again now, because I just want to learn more about Olive and her later years and what she's getting up to and the other people in the town. And yeah, I just can't wait to read more about Olive, and more from Elizabeth Strout, because she's just a wonderful way of writing characters. Her characters are just brilliant, and yeah, cannot recommend this enough. I gave this a really strong 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read, I actually don't want to talk about because I want to do a whole video on it because I loved it so much, and that was A Quart of Mr Fury by Sarah J Maas. And the reasons why I don't want to talk about this is, number one, it is a sequel, but I just want to talk a lot about just kind of maybe character, people who've at least read the first one possibly, and just character development and stuff like that. But I just really enjoy this, and this is obviously following on from A Court of Thorns and Roses. We are following a character called Farr, and we are following things that happen at the very end of that book and how Farr is dealing with some new things in her life. We are following her have to deal with a lot of trauma and a lot of things that she is just having to deal with in her head, a lot of PTSD, and how that is dealt with. And I loved how it was dealt with in this book, and I love how it wasn't this easy process. It was a very hard, painful process for her to go through her emotions, and it's still like she's not fixed by the end of this book. She probably will never be fixed. And I really like that it was this thing that PTSD isn't something that can be easily fixed. It's something that you really have to just have patience with and something that you have to deal with. There's things about relationships in this book that are just brilliant, that again I would like to talk about in a future video, and not something just a singular video for this book, because I think there's just so much to talk about and that I'd be here for ages in this video talking about it. But I just loved the twists and turns in this book. I love the romance in this book, the action in it, and I'll say it again in my main video that I will do for this book, but I am going to put up my hands and say that I completely misjudged this whole series as something that was possibly just like a little bit smutty and just like fairy romance and things, because I heard these books can be a little bit steamy at times, and I think I put it down as that it was just kind of like a smutty fairy book, and there's actually so much more. This is actually a really well told fantasy book that shouldn't be judged by its kind of cartoony cover and the fact that it's about fairies. I think this can stand up against other high fantasy very easily. And yeah, I definitely misjudged this book for a long time, and I'm so angry that I did, because then I could have read this sooner. But again, part of the fun of reading this series so much later after other people have already read it is kind of having that anticipation of, will I love it as much as other people? Oh, this is what everyone was talking about when they were talking about this one character. Now I get it. Now I feel it. Now I'm part of the gang, and I kind of love that as well. So I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. But please know I will be talking about this in a video either this week or next week. As soon as I can sit down and film it, because I just don't have the time at the moment, but hopefully in the next few days I will get time to sit down and film a proper video about this book and explain all the reasons why I loved it so much, so please look out for that. And the last book I read was Luna and the Lie by Mariana Zapata. This is one I had on Kindle Unlimited, on my Kindle obviously, and this is the one that I got because I loved Lukov in Love by Mariana Zapata, which I read 2 years ago, and it was on my Best Books of 2018 video. And Maria Zapata basically excels at slow burn romance. Like, that is what she does. It is her thing, and this again is another slow burn romance. And when I say slow burn romance, I mean like slow burn romance. Like, it's slow as fuck. It's really slow. And in Lukov in Love I was able to deal with it because it was also enemies to lovers. In Luna and the Lie, it was a little bit more annoying. So Luna and the Lie follows a character called Luna who is living in, I think it's Houston that she's in, and she basically works in this like not a car dealership, it's like a garage, like a mechanics, and she does like the paintwork and stuff on cars, so it's kind of cool. She's working in a very like male dominated workspace, and she's kind of around men all the time, and she has this kind of weird relationship with one of her bosses. She's two bosses, an older man called Mr. Cooper, who's like a father figure to her, has looked after her really well, she looks after him back, and they kind of have this like father-daughter relationship, foster father, foster-daughter relationship. And then her other boss, his name is Rip, and he is in his 40s, Luna is 26 and Rip is 41, and she's always just found him really attractive, and they have this kind of not a strained relationship, but like a very kind of not a particularly like overly friendly relationship. And Luna has loads of things in her past. She's a lot of like baggage in terms of just her family and her father and what she's had to deal with growing up and what she's had to leave in the past behind. She's kind of helped raise her 3 younger sisters on her own. Basically, she has looked after them from the time they were very young. She had to leave home when she was very young and look after her sisters, and she's had a pretty hard life, and now she's kind of at that point in life where she's suddenly been able to kind of look after herself. But loads of kind of things start to happen, and more Rip kind of comes into her life and is kind of helping her in all these different ways, and they get closer and closer. But there is this big age gap between them, and Rip has his own secrets as well. So we are just seeing this friendship / love kind of blossom between the two of them, and it's very kind of will they won't they for a long time, even though it's kind of obvious like what will happen. But again, as I said, this is a very, very slow burn romance. And when I say slow burn, it means like literally like nothing naughty happens until like 97% into the book. Like it's so slow burn that I think it was almost too slow burn for me in this. But near the end of it, Luna just got kind of annoying for me. There's a lot of repetition at the start of this book about Luna's feelings towards Rip and how she fancies him and how much she fancies him and how it's so obvious, like, you know, like she keeps going on about how handsome she is and how handsome she finds him and all these different things that she's attracted to him about, and I feel like the same thing was repeated a lot, and that kind of annoyed me a little bit. I didn't fancy Rip as a character. I normally kind of fancy the male characters, and this one I didn't, and I think it's just he's not really my type. I don't know, there's just something about him, he just wasn't really my type, and it could have been because he was older, and I'm not really attracted to men who are much older than me. But there were some points in this book between, they had these gentle moments, and because it's so slow burn, those gentle moments between these characters in Mariana Zapata's books are actually, they feel like so big, and they're so lovely to watch or to read. Those little tender moments that just mean so much because there hasn't been anything else. And there's some moments in this book that he calls her baby girl, and I love that. I just melted every time he called her baby girl. I was like, oh, I get it, yeah, I get it. Those moments I fancied him. So yeah, and then near the end, Luna she got really annoying as a character. She was just doing these stupid things, and she was just being really annoying, and she's being annoying for the purpose of being annoying, that kind of thing, like, oh, I'm not mad, and then being mad and acting mad, but being like, I'm not mad, I'm over it, like, I'm not mad, but then acting mad. And it was just, she did it for way too long, and it just got really, really annoying. So I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars overall. I definitely prefer the other Mariana Zapata book I've read. I have a couple of others of hers on my Kindle that I will be able to read and maybe know if Luke Over Love was just a fluke that I loved it so much, or if there's other slow burn romances that I will love just as much. It could be because this was very much in a car environment where Luke Over Love was figure skating, and obviously figure skating was something that I found really interesting anyway, where cars, not so much. I know how to drive a car, and that's about it. I'm not really interested in cars other than that. So it could have just been the environment, which wasn't really something that was really could be sold to me in that way. So yeah, I did enjoy it. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, but it was just a bit slow for me, and the characters did do some annoying things for me in the end. So that's everything I've read this week. Please let me know what you guys have read any of the books that I have read, and I would love to know, and I'll see you guys again next time.